Hello, and welcome to Matter of Fact, a podcast from the Roy Howard Community Journalism Center, where we report what matters. I'm your host, Hilawe Tibebe. With support from the Scripps Howard Foundation, our center works to counter misinformation and strengthen truth-based journalism across communities in Southeast Mississippi. Today's episode highlights our R8CJC News article, Southern Turnings Carves Out a Place in Wiggins' Revival. This conversation focuses on how a small wood-turning studio evolved into a coffee shop, a gift store, and a community hub. It now plays a major part in the revitalization of the rural downtown area. Founded by a couple with a mission to support fellow residents, Southern Turnings has grown far beyond its original purpose, drawing tourists and inspiring new energy along Pine Avenue. In this episode, we'll take a closer look at the business's unlikely beginnings, the role that creativity plays in rebuilding small towns, and how a craft as old as woodturning continues to shape both the people who enjoy it and the places where it's taught. Then we'll chat with the reporter Ashlyn Joyner about the inner workings of this story. We'll learn about the impact that local establishments have on the city and what it unveils about how communities empower themselves by contributing to them. When you hear the words remodel, revamp, or revitalize, you may think of large development projects, big investments, big buildings, and city scenes. But a community staple in Wiggins, Mississippi is proving that change does not have to start with a major investor. It can start with a single lathe. Southern Turnings began as a simple idea, a climate-controlled space where Scott Maddox could practice wood turning.
Now, on the personal side, I wanted to be able to turn wood in air conditioning. And so I've been turning my garage for years in a Mississippi humidity. The summers were brutal. So when we opened up here, this was originally going to be my entire workshop. And then my wife got involved.
When he moved to Wiggins in the late 1990s, Maddox remembers downtown as a bustling place. However, after years of economic shifts, by the time Southern Turnings opened its doors 8 years ago, Maddox recalls the vast difference he noticed in the downtown scene. He goes on to highlight just why Wiggins has been home to his family business for so long.
My wife and I opened Southern Turnings 9 years ago here on Pine Hill with the hopes of revitalizing our Pine Avenue. She's from here. She has a lot of history here. Her mother used to have a store up the street. She used to have a store, a baby store down the street. And so when I moved here, this was a vibrant community. All the buildings were open, there were shops, there was things to do. It was wonderful. Over time, that kind of dissipated, and basically there was nothing here. So when we came, there was one business open, and they were struggling, but we were hopeful that we could make it and that we would attract investment by other people.
And since they have opened in 2017, Maddox says they have catered to more than just the people of Wiggins and Stone County.
Believe it or not, I would guesstimate about 65% of our visitors come from outside Stone County. We have a lot of folks come up from the coast and Hattiesburg. We have had people come from Starkville, Columbus, Memphis, West Memphis. We have a couple that comes down from Wisconsin every year. All over. We're really blessed. It's taken a while to, I can remember when I had to ask Jane Ann to go buy a Coke, so we had a transaction for the day, 8.5 years ago. But people come from all over, and it blows me away because it is a small town.
Southern Turnings continues to bring in a wide array of customers to Wiggins, but it hasn't always been easy. Maddox says the business struggled in the past with finding people to work.
I think in general, probably a couple of the biggest challenges have been locally employment, finding the right employees. It's a different world today, the expectations. When I grew up, you were told when you were going to go work. And if you didn't show up to work, they found somebody else because there was somebody else in line for your job. Today, it's not the case. Today, we don't have any applications, or very few. And if we have applications, it's from folks that might be just wanting to start out to work, or they're in high school and they have limited hours. It's very difficult to find qualified people. In my case, I let the employees tell me when they can work. And I think it's a good partnership in that I don't schedule anybody on a day that they want off. I've been very blessed. In 9 years, I haven't had to do that. I don't know if that will continue, but the fact is that it's a different world today as far as working with people in the job. So that's been a huge obstacle to overcome.
Besides adapting to the modern workforce, Maddox says that the unexpected shutdown following the COVID-19 pandemic was another obstacle.
The other one, unfortunately, we were done with it, but COVID was tough. It had long-term effects from the fact that the government put restrictions on you. We were closed down for 8 weeks. So just in general, government policy, that's been difficult to overcome. You got to get involved in your local governments to make changes.
Maddox says that in times of uncertainty, community involvement is crucial to staying aware and urging change both on the local and federal levels.
And so I encourage people to step up and volunteer and know what's going on in City Hall, know what's going on in their regional and local governments, and national government for that matter.
Staying true to their community involvement, Southern Turnings has expanded throughout the city of Wiggins over the years, building contacts along the way.
We actually opened our third location. 2.5 years ago, we opened a little coffee hut drive-through only. It has far exceeded our expectations. It's been unbelievable. And so the college, Dr. Taylor, Lad Taylor, came to me a number of months ago and asked me to set up a coffee shop at the college. And so I worked with him until he retired and departed, and now I'm working with Dr. Bailey, Brad Bailey, who's been outstanding. The college has been just great. And so we will hopefully, all permits, construction, et cetera, we're looking to open January the 5th at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College.
As the business has grown, Maddox further emphasizes the different ways that wood turning itself has united the community.
Wood turning is a wonderful hobby. I would encourage a lot of young people to get involved in it. Our association, National Association, has done a good job encouraging women to turn. There's a lot of grants and everything available to it. I know I give lessons here, and I have everything from, I've had 92-year-old couples all the way down to 11-year-old kids. So it's just a wonderful hobby. There's something about making something, taking a raw product and making something. Of course, for me, I relate my wood turning to my faith. What God has taken was just trash and has given me purpose and a new life. I take a piece of wood that might need to go to the fire pit, and I create something with it that is just wonderful and has a purpose to it. So, but yeah, I would highly encourage folks to just Google wood turning. They're going to find thousands of videos on it, and you're only limited by your mind and what you can create.
According to Maddox, wood turning is avid in the state.
Oh yeah, we got a fabulous number of wood turners in Mississippi. They're located from the coast all the way up to, just shy of Memphis.
As for the future of Southern Turnings, Maddox says the way forward is through visibility within the younger generation.
It doesn't hurt to raise more awareness. That certainly doesn't hurt. Again, I think it's a function of where we are in our society and how the generations have evolved. I would love, my goal, one of my goals when we opened this place was I was hoping to be an extension of the high school. I'm a retired high school teacher, and I was hoping that I could get students to come in here and learn the trade and all.
Maddox attests to the positive effects he's seen wood turning have on his students in the past.
It's hard to get students off the Game Boy. I mean, it just is. It's a difficult challenge, but I've had a number of really good students. PBS did a show on us a number of years ago, Walt Grayson, Mississippi Roads, and one of my students was featured in there. Now, she doesn't turn very much anymore. She's gotten into boys, but that was when she was 6th grade, and now she's in college. So I've seen her evolution, but she made pins for a couple of years and raised money for scholarships for herself and things like that. So there's a lot of folks that are doing that. I've had students from Washington State, young people, 12 years old, that have come and learned the craft. They were here visiting, and now I understand they're doing the same thing, turning pins to raise money to go to school and things like that. So I would hope that kids would get more involved, because that's something that will last forever. But once once people like me pass away and are no longer turning, it's a craft that's going away. So we'll see.
According to Maddox, community outreach is very important to Southern Turnings and a crucial way for them to connect with their customers.
I would like to think that we do a good job at trying to bring our community together by a number of different activities. Sandra's activities with these classes that are done every Tuesday for the most part. We do a lot of after hours things. We did a lot more before COVID. COVID kind of took us to the side. A group of businesses here on Pine Hill have started the Pine Avenue Business Association, and we put on a First Saturday event every Saturday. We have a live band, we have vendors, we have a lot of family activities. That has really helped pull the community together. I am told regularly that this is a great place just to come and feel a part of family. And so I would hope so.
Just as the business has brought revenue back to downtown Wiggins, Maddox says the city has in turn showed their continuous support for the business.
So I give credit to our community for making that happen, because obviously if they wouldn't come through that door, we wouldn't be growing.
Maddox believes Wiggins has the potential to grow, urging new investors to take a chance on a small Pine Belt community.
We have a community that truly is wonderful to live in. It's very family oriented. I would just add that if there's any investors out there wanting to open a business, a small business, that they give Stone County and Wiggins a look.
Maddox says businesses like Southern Turnings are proof that change does not happen overnight. And when it comes to the progress of a community, local businesses can make a big impact in that change. The story you just heard was reported and produced in part by RHCJC News reporter Ashlyn Joyner. This story was unique to Ashlyn, as it was her first independent feature story. She secured her interview with the owner of Southern Turnings, gathered research on wood turning, and learned the impacts of small-town businesses on a city's comeback. She joins us now to talk about her journey covering this story and what she learned in the process. So Ashlyn, just for those listening in that might not know, what is a feature story and how is it maybe different from our regular coverage?
Yeah, so this was actually the first feature story that I had ever done, so I was kind of learning what a feature story is, but it's kind of like a more human interest focused story that kind of goes beyond like the regular facts of just hard news coverage, and it focuses more on kind of like a story or a person.
And opposed to the standard community journalism that we do, what would you say makes a feature story different?
I would say it kind of goes beyond just giving the hard facts of like who, what, when, where, why, how, and it goes more in depth into it. It goes more in depth into the story versus just the facts.
I see. So for this story, Ashlyn, you helped draft the interview questions and conducted the interview with Scott Maddox. What stood out to you most during your time with the person behind Southern Turnings?
I would say the thing that stood out to me most was just how welcoming everyone was, how amazing the atmosphere was. Because, sometimes, this is something that I've kind of learned during my first semester at RHCJC is that sometimes people don't want to talk to you. Especially when you say you're a journalist, they kind of get standoffish. So everyone was super welcoming, and it was just a great environment to be in.
When you first arrived in downtown Wiggins for this story, was there any first impressions of Pine Avenue or the community around it that you had?
I've actually never been to Wiggins before, so that was another first for me. But I remember seeing one of the businesses that we had done we had done a story on one of the businesses for the grant program, and so I remember seeing that and be like, wait, I know where that is. We've done a story on there. So even though I'd never been before, it just seemed like a little cute area, somewhere that I definitely want to go back to when I have free time in the future.
And in the beginning parts of the interview, as you heard Maddox describe the early struggles of the business, Were there any details that stood out to you?
The details that stood out to me were, especially kind of like you were saying, just the initial struggles of the business. He said that they had opened, I think, like 9 years ago, and they struggled really hard for the first 5 years before COVID. And so I just thought that was really interesting, because I know sometimes like businesses will open and then just close kind of right after they open. So I just thought it was really interesting how they managed to make it those 5 years if business was really as slow as he was saying that it was. I think that's super impressive.
And can you kind of see that incline in businesses and just activity in Wiggins' downtown area?
Like I said, I'm not really too familiar with Wiggins, so I'd have to do some more kind of research to answer that question.
Was there anything Scott shared that surprised you or changed your expectations about small town revitalization?
Honestly, when I went to go do this interview, I had done some research on like what wood turning is and what southern turnings is, but there was nothing really on their website that had said that they like revitalized the community or just anything like that. Even the past stories that I was reading that have been done on southern turnings. And so I would say just that in general, I had no idea going into this interview that it was going to end up being this story on small town revitalization. That was something that just kind of popped up that I was thinking about during the interview. I was like, I think that's going to be the angle for the story.
And you said you spent time learning about wood turning itself. Did that shape your understanding of the story at all?
I would say I didn't do too much research before the actual interview. I mostly researched it after the interview so that I could put it into the web article, so I wouldn't say it really shaped my perspective too much.
Now, this was a story where you took the lead in shaping the interview. Did preparing your own questions influence the conversation? How so?
I would say yes and no. I am glad that I did prepare questions just because I like to feel prepared. And I think that it definitely helped me. Like I said, I was doing a little bit of research before. I think it definitely helped me down that path of like, what do I need to figure out so that I can even know what to ask him. But I also think that this is some feedback that I got from our editor, Whitney, is that I was a little bit too in my questions, and I should have done kind of like you're doing right now, asking me follow-up questions and stuff like that, because I basically just went off the list of questions, which was helpful, but I think I was a little bit too focused on like just asking those questions, and I wasn't really thinking about any follow-up questions.
Now, what was the atmosphere like in that interview with Scott Maddox, where, you know, sometimes as journalists we might feel a lot of things, but we definitely know how to present ourselves to get the interviewee talking, but sometimes it can get a little stiff in the room. And were there any moments where you felt like the conversation maybe wasn't moving in the direction that you wanted it to?
Honestly, not really. Scott Maddox, he's a very nice man, and just the atmosphere in Southern Turnings, especially because it was decorated for Christmas, it was just a very like warm, bustling atmosphere, and so it was honestly a lot of fun. There was a couple moments where we were kind of like in the middle of everything when we were recording the interview, and so I was a little bit worried about being in the way, but I would say Scott Maddox never made me feel like I was in the way. He was a very nice man, and also I think a lot of times with RHCJC specifically, they're not expecting us to be students, and then like we'll show up and then we're not an adult, like we sounded like we were on the phone, so I get scared for that sometimes. But he was very nice, very welcoming, and as far as the interview going in a direction that I didn't want it to go, I would say no. Scott Maddox, he's very well spoken. He did a really great job of answering the questions that I asked him and staying on track.
Did this story teach you anything about the role that small businesses maybe play in a city's local identity? I know you said you've never been to Wiggins before. Did Southern Turnings and the atmosphere in Southern Turnings maybe exemplify some of the bigger themes of Wiggins as a city?
Definitely yes. Like I was saying a minute ago, I had never been to Wiggins before, but I definitely think when I have some free time, I would like to go back. Just because I've heard of Wiggins before, but I had never realized, like, just the community that they have there. And as far as Southern Turnings, like making it into a community, like I said, I walked in there and the atmosphere was just amazing. And I truly do want to go back.
What do you hope our listeners take away from this story about Wiggins and the people who live there?
I think something that I hope our listeners would take away is that, yes, small businesses do play a large part in the community, but also you have to make the decision to be invested in your community. I think that it's really important that people recognize, yes, small businesses do play a big part, but also you have to give that other 50% and make sure that you're being involved in your community as well.
That's very true. It's very vital that we highlight the parts of our community that we wish to remain parts of our community, to ensure that we still have these resources in years to come. Finally, Ashlyn, I know you said this has been your first semester working at RECJC. How do you feel your confidence has grown when it comes to interviewing sources, asking follow-ups, and managing conversations in the field?
I would say my confidence has definitely grown exponentially. I feel like I was a relatively confident person before, but definitely not in terms of skills that I would need for a future job. And so I feel like I've already come so far. It feels like so long ago to think about my first day being here, and like I didn't know what anything was. I didn't know what cut lines were. Like I just didn't know anything. And I feel like it has been a seemingly gradual process, but the time has just passed so fast, and I just feel like I've definitely learned more than I ever thought that I even could.
Ashlyn Joyner, thank you for your reporting and for helping us understand the grassroots of what has become a community staple in the revitalization of Wiggins. Now it's time for What is True, our fact-checking segment where we break down common claims, talk about how to verify them, and give you tools to spot what's real. Joining us is Amy Posey, our community engagement specialist. Amy oversees the What is True program and works to expand our network of community partners. Amy, when we look at a story like Southern Turnings, what does media literacy help us understand about the relationship between local journalism and community revitalization?
Well, studies from the Pew Research Center show that people who follow local news are more civically engaged and more likely to participate in their communities, doing things in different areas such as voting, attending meetings, and acting on local issues. That is exactly the kind of engagement that fuels revitalization. Research finds a strong link between local news habits and civic engagement. Most Americans say local news is important to their community's well-being. Media literacy helps us see that these stories aren't just information, they're catalysts. When local journalism highlights the effort of people revitalizing their town, it helps residents understand what's happening, why it matters, and how they can participate. Coverage becomes part of the ecosystem of revival.
So in what ways does local news help communities verify or contextualize sentiments about small town economic health?
Local news grounds the conversation in reality. Instead of relying on stereotypes or assumptions, reporters can confirm whether claims about foot traffic, new jobs, or event attendance are true. By doing things like visiting, interviewing customers and employees, and checking public records like business registrations or tax data. Studies from the 2024 Newspaper Research Journal show that communities with strong local information ecosystems have better civic engagement as a result of coverage that verifies and contextualizes local claims, strengthen democratic deliberation. Reporting gives communities factual information like what's happening, what's closing, what's changing, and why. The clarity helps people separate perception from reality.
So what media literacy skills should listeners apply when they hear stories about economic development or revitalization efforts?
Listeners should ask themselves critical questions as they take in information. For example, what evidence is the story presenting? If you hear claims like, this business revived the block, ask for concrete metrics. Things like attendance numbers, a timeline of store openings and closings, tax receipts, or even anecdotal patterns from neighbors. Another question, whose voices are included? Is the story including a cross-section of the community? Young and old residents, employees, municipal officials. Missing perspectives can mean the narrative is incomplete. A part of media literacy is understanding how a story was constructed and being able to assess its credibility and completeness.
Lastly, Amy, I just want to ask if there's any truth in the common narratives about rural decline. How can reporting on small, locally owned businesses challenge that narrative if it exists?
Well, according to data from the U.S. Office of Advocacy, small businesses are a measurable economic force. They make up a major share of employment output and local tax bases. Highlighting their concrete contribution to their community counters false narratives with evidence about how local economies work and where leverage points might be brewing. There are broad narratives about rural towns shrinking or dying out. However, those narratives miss the nuance that small businesses can be indicators of growth. Focusing on local establishments like Southern Turnings shows that rural areas are more complex. They're places where innovation and community building happen all the time.
And that's what is true with community engagement specialist Amy Posey. You can learn more about the program or submit a question of your own at r8cjcnews.com/WITREQ or by calling 601-266-TRUE. That's 601-266-8783. This episode was adapted from our R8CJC News article, Southern Turnings Carves Out a Place in Wiggins Revival. A special thanks to the team behind this story, videographer Samin Chand, and of course reporter Ashlyn Joyner, who we heard from earlier in the show. You can read the full story and explore related reporting at r8cjcnews.com. Be sure to follow us on social media at R8CJC News to keep up with more stories just like this one. As always, thank you for listening and for spending time with us as we take you behind the scenes of the Roy Howard Community Journalism Center. I'm Hilawe Tibebe, and this is Matter of Fact.